Let me start by saying this. I've read a lot of weird books. A lot. Zombie books, alien invasion books, post-apocalyptic survival stories, fantasy books, sci-fi books, books where the world ends in nuclear war, books where AI destroys humanity. I thought I had seen every possible version of the apocalypse. Then I found Dungeon Crawler Carl, and I realized I was completely wrong. Because this might be one of the most absurd, hilarious, violent, and addictive apocalypse stories ever written. And the craziest part? It somehow works. The story begins with a guy named Carl, and Carl is not some superhero. He's not a genius. He's not secretly trained by the military. He's not the chosen one. He's just a regular dude having a terrible night. And I mean terrible. He finds out his girlfriend cheated on him. Already rough. Then things somehow get even more ridiculous. He goes outside wearing basically nothing but boxers and Crocs because he's trying to chase down his girlfriend's cat. And this cat? Her name is Princess Donut. And yes, remember that name, because she becomes one of the greatest characters in this entire series. At this point, Carl probably thinks this is the worst night of his life. Getting cheated on, running outside half-dressed, chasing a cat. Humiliating. But then the apocalypse happens. And it happens instantly. No warning, no government announcement, no dramatic countdown, no scientists trying to stop it, no heroic speech. Every single building on Earth suddenly collapses, just like that, gone. Homes, hospitals, schools, office buildings, restaurants, airports, everything. And if you were inside a building, you died instantly. Billions of people are wiped out in seconds. Imagine waking up and realizing most of humanity is gone. That alone would make this story insane. But it gets worse. Or, depending on your sense of humor, better. Massive alien ships appear, and humanity learns something horrifying. Earth has basically been taken over by an advanced alien corporation. Not an empire, not an army, a corporation. That detail matters because this series constantly mocks capitalism, entertainment culture, and corporate greed. The aliens explain that Earth has been acquired. That word is so cold. Acquired. Like Earth is just another business deal. Human civilization? Finished. Your home? Gone. Your government? Irrelevant. And if you survived, congratulations. Your reward is even more suffering because now you have one option. Enter the dungeon. That's where things become completely insane. Beneath Earth is now a giant multi-level dungeon, and the surviving humans are forced to enter it. Why? For entertainment. That's right. The suffering of humanity becomes a giant reality show for alien audiences across the galaxy. Imagine mixing The Hunger Games, Squid Game, and an RPG video game. That's basically what this is. Alien viewers watch humans fight monsters, complete quests, level up, find loot, die horribly, and they treat it like fun weekend entertainment. That idea alone is incredibly dark, but the book somehow makes it hilarious too, because Carl reacts exactly how most normal people would react. He's confused, angry, sarcastic. He constantly thinks, what is happening right now? And that makes him feel real. A lot of apocalypse protagonists instantly become action heroes. Carl doesn't. He feels like an actual person thrown into complete insanity. And then there's Princess Donut. At first, she just seems like a spoiled cat, but trust me, she becomes one of the biggest reasons people fall in love with this series. And we haven't even reached her craziest moments yet. That comes later. What makes this opening so effective is how fast everything moves. The book wastes zero time. Within a short period, Carl gets cheated on, chases a cat, witnesses global destruction, learns aliens own Earth, discovers humanity has become entertainment, and gets forced into a death dungeon. That pacing is addictive. You keep thinking, there's no way this gets crazier. And then it does, over and over. That's why Dungeon Crawler Carl exploded in popularity. It feels fresh, it feels unpredictable, and most importantly, it's fun. A lot of dystopian stories are incredibly serious. This one understands how absurd its own concept is, and it leans into that chaos perfectly. But underneath the humor, there's something darker happening. Humans are being turned into content. Pain becomes entertainment. Death becomes ratings. And that idea feels uncomfortably relevant in today's social media world. But for now, Carl has one goal: survive. And trust me, survival is about to become far more complicated than he ever imagined. Because entering the dungeon is where the real nightmare begins. So after Carl survives the collapse of Earth, you'd think things might calm down for a second. Maybe humanity regroups. Maybe governments fight back. Maybe scientists figure something out. Nope. The aliens basically say, "Welcome to your new reality." And that reality is brutal. They tell the remaining humans that the surface world is gone. There's nothing left to rebuild. No cities, no normal life, no going back. Your only option? Enter the dungeon. And this is where Dungeon Crawler Carl fully turns into absolute chaos. The dungeon is basically an 18-floor underground death maze. Every floor gets harder, more monsters, more traps, more insane challenges. And if you die, that's it. Game over. But here's the twist that makes this story feel completely insane. The entire thing runs like a video game. Survivors receive stats, health points, inventory systems, equipment, loot drops, quest rewards, special abilities, level progression. It feels like World of Warcraft mixed with pure nightmare fuel. And the AI running the dungeon? Completely unhinged. It gives absurd announcements, makes weird jokes, acts like this entire apocalypse is entertainment, which makes everything even more disturbing, because for the aliens watching, this is fun. This is content. This is basically the biggest reality TV show in the galaxy. Imagine billions of aliens watching humans suffer the same way people binge watch reality shows today. That's the satire hidden inside this story, and it feels very intentional. Matt Dinniman clearly understands how obsessed modern culture is with entertainment, even when things get dark, especially when things get dark. And Carl quickly realizes surviving isn't just about fighting monsters. He has to understand the system, and the system is ridiculous. For example, there are sponsor systems. Alien companies can sponsor players. Fans can send gifts. Contestants build popularity. Some people become famous, even while fighting for survival. That's such a wild concept. Imagine trying not to die while also accidentally becoming an influencer. That's basically what happens here. And then the monsters show up, and they are insane. Not just normal fantasy monsters, weird creatures, brutal enemies, completely unpredictable threats. And Carl quickly learns one brutal truth: normal human behavior gets you killed fast. This isn't a place where kindness alone saves you. This isn't a place where society's normal rules still apply. Everything has changed, and one of the reasons Carl becomes such a great protagonist is because he adapts without becoming completely heartless. That balance matters. He's smart, he's sarcastic, he gets angry, he makes mistakes, but he keeps learning, and readers love characters who grow under pressure. Now let's talk about one of the funniest details in the entire series. Remember how Carl was chasing a cat when the apocalypse happened? Yeah, he entered this world wearing almost nothing. He's underdressed for basically everything. And the book constantly uses that for comedy. Because imagine trying to survive monsters while dressed like someone who just ran outside for 2 minutes. It's ridiculous and somehow hilarious. Then things get even crazier when Princess Donut starts becoming more important. At first, she still feels like comic relief, just a fancy, spoiled cat. But slowly you realize she's becoming something much bigger, and that relationship between Carl and Donut becomes the emotional center of the story, which sounds insane if you haven't read the book. Yes, I'm telling you, one of the best character dynamics in modern fantasy involves a man and his ex-girlfriend's cat, and somehow it works perfectly. Another thing this book does really well is pacing. There's almost no filler. Every chapter feels like new threat, new discovery, new disaster, new insane twist. You keep saying, "I'll stop after one more chapter," and suddenly it's 3 a.m. That's why people get addicted to this series and why the audiobook narrated by Jeff Hayes became incredibly popular. His performance makes the chaos feel even more alive. And beneath all the humor and insanity, there's still something very dark happening. Human beings are being reduced to content. Their trauma becomes entertainment. Their survival becomes ratings. And the aliens don't care, as long as people keep watching. Sound familiar? That's what makes this story smarter than people expect. It looks ridiculous on the surface, but underneath, it's quietly criticizing modern media culture, and Carl is starting to realize something terrifying. Winning this game might be impossible, but losing? That usually means dying horribly, and things are about to get even crazier because Princess Donut is about to completely steal the show. At this point in Dungeon Crawler Carl, you're already thinking, okay, this story is insane. The world ended. Aliens bought Earth. Humanity got thrown into a deadly underground game show. Carl is fighting for survival in boxers and Crocs. That alone sounds ridiculous enough. But then the book introduces the thing that truly makes this series unforgettable. Princess Donut becomes an absolute superstar. And I'm not exaggerating. She starts as what seems like a joke character. She's a spoiled show cat, she's dramatic, high maintenance, completely obsessed with herself. And at first you think she's just there for comic relief. Then everything changes. After entering the dungeon, Donut gains intelligence upgrades, and suddenly she can talk. And not only can she talk, she has an enormous personality. She's dramatic, she's arrogant, she judges everyone, she acts like she's royalty, and honestly, she kind of steals every scene she's in. Imagine your elegant pet cat suddenly speaking with the confidence of a reality TV celebrity. That's Donut, and she immediately becomes one of the most entertaining parts of the series. She constantly says ridiculous things, makes outrageous demands, acts offended by everything, and somehow remains incredibly lovable. That balance is hard to pull off. A character like this could easily become annoying, but Matt Dinniman writes her so well that she becomes iconic, and fans absolutely love her. In fact, a lot of readers say they stayed for Carl, but became obsessed because of Donut. And honestly, I get it. She's hilarious. But here's what makes her even more interesting. She isn't just comic relief. She becomes massively important to the plot because the alien audience becomes obsessed with her. Think about it. A talking cat surviving a death dungeon. That's incredible entertainment. She becomes marketable, famous, a fan favorite. Alien audiences adore her. And suddenly, Carl and Donut aren't just random survivors anymore. They're becoming celebrities inside this twisted survival show, and that changes everything. They gain attention. Sponsors notice them. Fans watch them. Their popularity grows, and that popularity can literally impact survival. That concept feels incredibly modern because it mirrors social media culture. The more entertaining you are, the more visibility you get, and visibility creates opportunity, even in a nightmare scenario. That idea feels disturbingly realistic, and Carl starts realizing something dangerous. The dungeon doesn't just reward survival, it rewards spectacle. You need attention, you need branding, you need memorable moments. That sounds way too similar to influencer culture, and I'm pretty sure that's intentional. Meanwhile, Carl and Donut's relationship becomes one of the best parts of the story. At first, Carl is mostly trying to survive, and now he has to survive while dealing with an incredibly demanding talking cat. That creates endless comedy, but it also creates genuine emotional moments because despite all the chaos, they become family, and that emotional connection gives the story real heart. Without that relationship, the book could feel like non-stop chaos, but Donut gives it personality, and Carl gives it grounding. Together, they somehow make this absurd world feel real. And let's talk about how unique this is. Most apocalypse stories feel very similar. You've seen zombies, viruses, nuclear war, AI takeovers, alien invasions, but how many stories can say the world ended, aliens monetized humanity, and a talking cat became a global celebrity? That's incredibly original, and originality matters. That's one reason Dungeon Crawler Carl exploded through word of mouth. People recommended by saying, "You have to read this insane book." That curiosity pulls people in, and once readers meet Donut, usually they understand why fans become obsessed. She's funny, she's ridiculous, she's chaotic, and somehow she becomes one of the most memorable fictional characters in recent fantasy. But while Carl and Donut are becoming fan favorites, they're also attracting dangerous attention. And that attention comes with serious consequences, because the deeper they go into the dungeon, the darker the truth behind this entire system becomes. By now, Carl and Princess Donut are no longer just trying to stay alive. They've become famous. Alien audiences love them. Sponsors are paying attention. Fans are watching every move they make. And on the surface, that sounds like a weird advantage. More attention means more resources, more gifts, more support, better chances of survival, right? Well, not exactly. Because this is where Dungeon Crawler Carl gets much darker than people expect. At first, the dungeon feels chaotic and funny. Monsters, loot boxes, crazy quests, a talking cat, dark humor everywhere. But eventually, you realize something terrifying. This entire system is designed to profit from human suffering. And suddenly, the story feels way more disturbing. The aliens didn't destroy Earth because they had to. They did it because Earth was valuable. Humans became content, the dungeon became a product, and suffering became entertainment. That's the real horror. Think about how cold that is. Billions of humans die. Entire civilizations disappear. Families are erased. And somewhere across the galaxy, audiences are treating it like weekend entertainment. They watch people die the same way some people binge reality TV shows. That comparison feels very intentional. Matt Dinniman is clearly making fun of modern entertainment culture. And honestly, the parallels feel uncomfortable. Social media already rewards outrage. Reality TV often profits from humiliation. Internet culture can turn public breakdowns into viral clips. People consume drama constantly. Now imagine that mindset pushed to an extreme level. That's the dungeon. And it gets worse. Everything is monetized. Everything. There are sponsors, advertisements, corporate partnerships, fan engagement systems, merchandising, public rankings, audience manipulation. Even survival can become transactional. That feels terrifyingly familiar. And Carl starts realizing that this entire system wants contestants to become characters, not people. Characters, heroes, villains, comic relief, tragic stories, drama machines. The more entertaining you are, the more valuable you become. That sounds exactly like influencer culture. And that's why this series feels smarter than people expect. It looks ridiculous from the outside, but underneath the chaos, it has real things to say. And Carl begins rejecting that system. He realizes surviving isn't enough. Because even if he survives physically, the system wants people to break them mentally. It wants them desperate. It wants them performing. It wants them entertaining audiences. And Carl hates that. That anger becomes one of his strongest traits. He's not just trying to live, he wants to fight back. And that shift changes the story. He stops acting like a passive participant. He starts becoming dangerous. And that's when the people running the dungeon begin noticing him in a very different way. Because powerful systems love obedient players. They hate unpredictable ones. And Carl becomes extremely unpredictable. Meanwhile, Princess Donut continues balancing the darkness with humor. She still delivers hilarious moments, still acts dramatic, still feels larger than life. And honestly, the story needs that. Without humor, this world would feel unbearably dark. That balance is one of the biggest reasons this series works so well. It knows when to be ridiculous, and it knows when to hit you with something heavy. That combination keeps readers addicted, and it also makes the world feel layered. This isn't just a dumb action story. This isn't just comedy. This isn't just dystopian fiction. It somehow mixes all of it, and that's rare. By this point in the series, readers usually realize they're reading something much bigger than expected. You came for chaos, you stayed for the characters, and suddenly you're thinking about capitalism, media culture, and how entertainment systems exploit people. That's impressive writing. And Carl is about to make a decision that changes everything. Because surviving the dungeon is no longer enough. Now he wants to break the entire system. And that's when things become truly insane. At the beginning of Dungeon Crawler Carl, Carl is just trying to survive another day. That's it. Don't die. Protect Princess Donut. Figure out what this insane dungeon even is. Basic survival. But by this point in the story, that version of Carl is gone, because survival alone isn't enough anymore. He's seen too much. Too many innocent people die. Too many contestants get turned into entertainment. Too many corporations profit from human suffering. Too many powerful people treat Earth like a joke. And Carl reaches a breaking point. He stops thinking, how do I survive this? And starts thinking, how do I hurt the people running this? That shift changes everything. And honestly, it makes the story even better, because readers love watching someone fight back against impossible systems, especially when those systems feel unfair. And the dungeon is built on unfairness. The rules constantly change. Powerful people manipulate outcomes. Entertainment matters more than justice. And Carl realizes playing nice won't save anyone. So he starts becoming far more strategic and far more dangerous. He studies weaknesses, he looks for loopholes, he manipulates the game's own mechanics. He starts doing things the system never expected. And that makes him incredibly fun to watch, because he isn't the strongest character. He often survives by being smarter, more creative, more unpredictable. And that's satisfying. A lot of stories solve problems by making the hero overwhelmingly powerful. Carl doesn't become unstoppable, he becomes resourceful. And that feels much more interesting. And the stakes keep getting bigger. At first, he's fighting monsters. Then he's fighting powerful contestants. Then he's fighting systems much larger than himself. And every level of the dungeon feels more dangerous than the last. That constant escalation keeps the series addictive. And of course, Princess Donut remains amazing. She's still hilarious, still dramatic, still stealing scenes. But she also grows. And that's what makes her more than just a funny character. You start seeing emotional depth, fear, loyalty, pain, growth. And her bond with Carl gets stronger. That relationship becomes the emotional heart of the series. Without it, the story would just be chaos. With it, the story actually makes people care. And that emotional connection makes the dangerous moments hit harder, because now readers are invested. You genuinely worry about these characters. And the boss fights? Absolutely insane. The dungeon constantly introduces creative enemies and ridiculous situations. Every new floor feels unpredictable. And that unpredictability is one of the series' biggest strengths. Readers can't easily guess what happens next. That keeps engagement incredibly high. And the deeper Carl goes, the more powerful enemies he makes, because systems don't like rebellion, and powerful people definitely don't like public embarrassment, especially when billions of viewers are watching. Carl becomes a massive problem, and that makes him even more entertaining to audiences inside the story, which creates another interesting contradiction. The same audience helping fuel this system also starts supporting someone trying to destroy it. That's very clever writing, and honestly, very realistic. Sometimes audiences love rebels, as long as rebellion remains entertaining. That idea feels extremely modern. By now, Dungeon Crawler Carl has fully evolved from funny apocalypse story into full-scale rebellion story, and somehow it still stays funny, still stays emotional, still stays unpredictable. That balance is hard to pull off. And Carl is heading towards something much bigger than survival. He's becoming a symbol, and symbols can be far more dangerous than fighters, because once people believe resistance is possible, systems start getting very nervous. So after all the chaos in Dungeon Crawler Carl, the world ending, aliens buying Earth, humanity becoming reality TV entertainment, Carl turning into a rebel, and Princess Donut somehow becoming one of the most iconic cats in modern fiction, the biggest question is, why are people so obsessed with this series? Why did this weird story explode through word of mouth? Why do so many readers say, "Trust me, just read it"? And honestly, there are a few big reasons. One, it feels completely original. A lot of modern stories feel familiar. Another zombie story, another vampire story, another generic fantasy world, another predictable dystopian novel. But Dungeon Crawler Carl feels like someone threw 10 crazy ideas together and somehow made it work. Alien takeover, game mechanics, dark comedy, reality TV satire, talking cats, corporate greed, rebellion. It sounds ridiculous, but that originality makes people curious, and curiosity gets clicks. It also gets readers hooked. The pacing is insane. This series moves fast, very fast. Something crazy is always happening. New enemies, new betrayals, new dungeon levels, new twists, new absurd moments. There's almost no filler. That's why readers constantly say, "I'll read one more chapter." Then suddenly it's 2 a.m. That pacing is incredibly addictive, and it makes this series perfect for audiobook listeners too. The audiobook is legendary. A huge reason this series blew up is narrator Jeff Hayes. A lot of fans say the audiobook experience made the story even better, and honestly, he deserves a lot of credit. His performance brings Carl to life, and especially Princess Donut. Her voice performance became incredibly popular among fans. Some people discovered the series entirely because of the audiobook. That helped push Matt Dinniman into mainstream attention. It's way smarter than it looks. At first glance, people assume this is just dumb fun. And sure, it is fun, but it's also quietly criticizing corporate greed, influencer culture, entertainment addiction, social media obsession, capitalism without morality. That deeper layer gives the story staying power. It's not empty action. There's something meaningful underneath the chaos. The characters feel real. Even in a completely insane world, the characters feel emotionally real. Carl feels like an actual person trying to survive impossible circumstances. He gets angry, he makes mistakes, he grows, and Princess Donut is somehow hilarious and emotional at the same time. That relationship keeps people invested. And it's perfect for modern attention spans. And this might be controversial, but this series feels built for the internet era. Fast pacing, constant cliffhangers, crazy concepts, highly shareable moments, strong humor, memorable characters. That's why it spreads so well on platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Reddit communities. People love recommending stories that sound insane, and this story definitely sounds insane. And honestly, that's why Dungeon Crawler Carl works so well as a YouTube video, too. Your thumbnail alone can sell it. Aliens destroyed Earth for entertainment, or this talking cat survived the apocalypse, or the craziest book I've ever read. People click because they need answers, and once they click, the story is so wild they usually stay. That's the real magic of this series. It sounds absurd, then somehow becomes emotional, smart, funny, and impossible to stop reading. And if someone still hasn't read it after hearing all this, I only have one question. Would you survive floor 1?